our bipartisan bill will be the most significant investment in American infrastructure since we built the interstate highway system. And I know that for my state, for Nevada, these investments, well, they're going to make a real difference, because this bill takes steps to support our traditional infrastructure, our roads, our bridges, our rail, our transit. You know, in Nevada, there are over 1,000 miles of highway in our state that are in need of repair, and well over 24 of Nevada's bridges that need to be restored. We've all experienced driving on cracked roads and broken down bridges. We know the toll it takes, and this degradation, it poses serious safety concerns. It increases commute times. It costs Nevada drivers hundreds each year in costs, maybe thousands due to poor conditions. And now, right now, we have an opportunity to make critical upgrades and repairs, both for those who call the Silver State home and for the millions of travelers that visit us from far and wide. Our bill would also provide funding to expand our roads, bridges, highways in Nevada and across the whole country, Mr. President, from your state of Maine all the way down to us in southern Nevada. As a member of the group that negotiated this bipartisan legislation, I'm proud that our bill provides flexible funding to states and communities to address their unique challenges. In Nevada, that means meeting the needs of a growing population and making our state accessible to visitors who contribute to our economy and support our job-creating businesses. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, well, it meets that need by providing growing western states like mine, Nevada, critical funding for surface transportation investments. The bill would also make significant investments in accessible public transport and rail systems to ease travel for people in our cities and to connect our rural and suburban communities to our urban cores. And through the bill's investment in western water systems, we can transport water across communities to better meet needs swiftly and develop important water recycling and reuse projects that will go a long way to providing greater access to water, something especially needed in my state and so many others as we deal with the current historic drought conditions. But beyond traditional infrastructure investments, this bill is also forward-thinking in its scope and in its intent. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, well, it just doesn't invest in solutions to our current problems. It will help invest in the success of our nation's future and our ability to overcome emerging problems through energy and cybersecurity infrastructure, like my CyberSense Act, bipartisan legislation that is included in this legislation to ensure the cybersecurity of technologies used in our bulk power system. You know, addressing these emerging challenges, it took hard work and it took compromise, exactly what our constituents expect of us, but which Congress far too often fails to deliver. Many of you know that the process of bringing this bill together involved numerous meetings, long hours, and many discussions across party lines on all the issues involved. And I was proud to take part in helping put this bill together because I wanted to be the voice at the table for Nevadans, that voice at the negotiating table that they need me to be. And I wanted to make sure that we address the issues important to our state. And I'm here to say that this bill does just that. This bill includes investments that will uniquely benefit Nevada now and for years to come by increasing access to broadband, by upgrading our state's airports, two sections of the legislation that I took a leading role in drafting. I don't have to tell anyone, but fast, reliable access to the internet, it's critical for all of our daily lives, and it has been for decades. The pandemic, well, it only put a spotlight on our current digital divide and the challenges that far too many Americans face getting connected. During COVID-19, many Nevadans went online, well, to conduct business, to seek medical care, or pursue education. But our state's broadband disparity limits many Nevadans, from rural and tribal communities to our underserved areas in our large cities, from using or even having the most basic of internet services. So the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act is going to bring broadband to communities that have long gone without access. It makes an unprecedented investment in building out broadband infrastructure. Never before has Congress taken such a bold step to get all Americans connected. Our bill includes over $42 billion for state broadband deployment grants to connect unserved and underserved communities to high-speed internet. And finally, we will tackle the last-mile challenges that have plagued so many of our communities for years. This bipartisan legislation also includes my Middle Mile Broadband Deployment Act, which I drafted to fund critical broadband infrastructure that connects internet carriers to local networks and community institutions, that will serve as a launching off point and connector for getting broadband out to all the households in their areas. It would also make the cost of broadband more affordable to Nevada families, providing low-income households support to help pay for this service via the new infrastructure that we are building. Initial estimates are that our bipartisan legislation will make broadband access accessible to more than 120,000 Nevadans who currently lack it, and it will provide subsidies to about a quarter of our state's residents most in need so that they can afford it. Through this bill, we're taking steps to get Nevadans connected for success in the 21st century and beyond. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, well, it's also going to help support a key industry in the Silver State, travel and tourism. It does so by providing much-needed funding for airports to expand and upgrade their terminals and facilities. And as we prepare for a post-pandemic world, these critical investments will allow us to bring in travelers and tourists in even greater numbers. And as they come, these visitors will support our state's local businesses, they will boost our communities and our economy. As chair of the Senate Subcommittee on Tourism, Trade, and Export Promotion, I made it my priority to fight for Nevada's travel, tourism, and hospitality economy as a member of the G22, and I will continue to do so. In addition to securing robust funding for our airports, I'm also proud that this legislation includes my Bipartisan Tourism Act, which requires the Department of Transportation to update its National Travel and Tourism Infrastructure Strategic Plan to develop an immediate-term and long-term strategy to use the infrastructure investments that we make today, that we're going to make this week, possible to revive the travel and tourism, not just in Nevada, but of course all across this nation as we come out of a deadly pandemic. Through the investments provided in this bill, Nevada's travel and tourism industry, and hopefully all of our tourism, can soar once more. And to make all of these things happen, this bill, our bill, invests in creating jobs that will help repair and strengthen our infrastructure, and jobs that will build our country's new foundation. With the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, we can rebuild, we can revamp, we can work through all of our infrastructure, and through that, we will create good-paying jobs, and we will improve lives of hard-working families and communities all across this country. I urge all of my colleagues to choose to make this investment with us. Join us, please, in investing in our families, and investing in our communities, and investing in our states and in our country's future.